Hey, beautiful humans. Thank you for tuning into the Love and Life podcast, the podcast where we talk about how to live and love authentically, whatever that might look like to you. I'm your host, Elizabeth Cunningham. Let's dive in. Hey, beautiful human beings. How are you doing today? Let's take a moment to just take a couple big deep breaths and drop in. Big deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Wherever you're at in the world, just take a big deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. It's just nice. It's just nice to take a few moments of mindfulness to connect with your breath, connect with your body. We don't often do that. And we have busy, hectic lives, most of us. And so just taking a few moments to do that. Thanks. Thanks for doing that with me. This episode is about falling into past patterns, past ways of being in your relationships, and how you may be able to recognize that, be aware that you are doing that, because we all we all do it. If you are a human being, you do this. Okay. Um, so listen from your own perspective. I know that sometimes, especially if you're going through a rough patch with a partner or partners, it can be really easy to listen from the lens of my partners really need to hear this because this is exactly what they're doing. And that may be true. It may be true that this is what they're doing as well. But it's less empowering to focus on what someone else is doing because you can't do anything about what someone else is doing. You can communicate about it, you can share how it impacts you, you can have, all of that, but you can't actually make them do anything different. And so it is the most impactful way to listen to this episode or any of my episodes or just anything in general is to look at it from your point of view, from your perspective, really turning it inward, and going from there. So, what do I mean? Oh, and the other thing that I want to say before we get started on talking about like our past and how past ways of being can creep up and sneak in to our relationships now and how that might not be helpful. Before we get to that, a little housekeeping is that my neighbors are doing construction currently on their house, and I had recorded about like a minute and a half, 2 minutes before this, and then re-listened to it to see if you could hear it, and you can. I did close the windows, so hopefully it's a little bit more muffled. I am wearing my headphones. I've done everything that I can to drown out the construction noises. But that you might hear some saws in the background. You might hear some pounding and hammering and things like that. And yeah, my neighbors are remodeling their kitchen, so good for them. That's awesome. So this episode was inspired by something that happened recently where I was listening to eavesdropping. I was eavesdropping. I was eavesdropping on a conversation between dad and his son. His son, I would guess, is probably around like 14, 13-ish age range. And the son was really upset with his dad and was like, "You don't understand what I'm going through. You don't, I don't want to do the things that you're asking me to do because you don't understand all the things that I've had to do today, and et cetera, et cetera." And the dad, the dad was like, "Okay, I got it. That you've had a stressful day. Also, I have also had a stressful day, and all of these things still need to get done. We still need to set the table. We still need to wash the dishes. Like this all still needs to get done, even though, maybe we've had a rough go of it today." And the son was unmoved, unmoved by this argument. and insisted that his dad really just did not understand him at all. Um, and so a couple of things that I want to, and I was thinking about it. So I was listening to this conversation, the thoughts that were going through my mind were I mean, both of them are correct. Both of them are right, right? The son is right. Like, his dad doesn't necessarily understand everything that he's gone through today. He doesn't understand the level of stress that he has been in today. And also, what's also true is that, yeah, things still need to get done. They still need to operate as a household. They still need to get dinner on the table and, like, wash up after dinner and, like, do things around the house like that. That is also true. So both of them are right, in their own way, and yet they were still at an impasse. And it was really frustrating for both of them. I'm sure. So that's my opinion, and that's what it sounded like, from my perspective. Is that it was really frustrating for both of them, to not be understood by the other one. And the son, of course, was saying, like, "You don't understand me." But I'm sure that the dad was also thinking, "You don't understand me either." And so um the past ways of being, so how I was thinking about this, I was like, well, we still do this. Like, this is not just a, parent child, father son dynamic. This is a dynamic that happens in all of our relationships, where one person insists that the other person doesn't understand where they're coming from, and is so upset that they're not being understood, that there is no way to have a conversation with the other person that is, presumably misunderstanding them or not understanding them fully. And so, in this, parent child dynamic, it seems pretty clear that, like, that's a fairly normal thing to have happen. And we kind of excuse the child's behavior because we're like, well, he's a child, he's a teenager. Like, this is part of his growth and development, and, like, kind of what you go through. Like, everyone, everyone has been there. Everyone can probably relate to being that teenager that's just like, you don't understand me, and you're just right about how people don't understand you, and you don't look at other people's perspectives because you're just so caught up and that you're not being understood, right? But in our relationship, so fast forward to now, we're in adult relationships. Maybe that's a romantic relationship, maybe that's a friendship, maybe that is a co-working relationship, whatever the case may be. Obviously, I mostly coach people around romantic relationships, and so that's the perspective that I'm going to come from. But I just want to point out that this could really happen, like, in any adult relationship dynamic as well. And so, no, I like, what I want you to look at for yourself, what I'm offering to you to look at for yourself, is to look at where you feel as though you're being misunderstood, which most of us at some point in our relationship feel misunderstood for some way, shape, fashion or another. I know that that is true for me. That there's times in my relationships where I don't feel understood. I don't feel like my partner really understands where I'm coming from, the point that I'm trying to get across, the experience that I had. Like, it feels like a disconnect for me. And the tendency could be to revert back to those past ways of being. Like, if you haven't learned any new skills in this area, and I say that with, like, as much compassion as possible. Like, I don't want you to put a value judgment on that, okay? Like, I don't want you to be like, oh, well, I haven't learned skills, so therefore I'm not a good person, or I'm not good enough, or there's something that I'm missing, or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. And I also don't want you to do yourself the disservice of saying, "Oh no, I've learned the skills for this. Like, I'm good. Like, I want you to consider that that's doing yourself a disservice in considering that perhaps there's areas in which you still do this or that it still creeps in because this is just a part of how you've been in the past. And so sometimes this can get triggered. And the point here is to have that level of awareness to be able to see when you're doing that. And so that way you can correct the behavior in whatever way is, most applicable for you. So, so what I just said was, don't have a value judgment on yourself about this, and also don't count yourself out either. Again, you're a human and you do this. And so there's nothing wrong with that. And it doesn't matter if you've learned a lot of skills and you feel like you should be better than this. I think that that creeps up for us sometimes as well. It's like, I'm 45 and I'm not 16 anymore and I should be better than this. It's like, okay, great. Well, that is a judgment on yourself that's only holding you back from healing and then moving forward and having a better relationship with yourself and a better skill set, tool set for communication and relating and emotional intelligence to be in the relationships that you're in and to have a deeper connection because that's honestly like what all of this is about, is that ability to have the awareness so that you can move through what you need to move through so that you can have the deep connected relationships that you really truly want. So in noticing where you do this. Notice where you feel misunderstood or there's something that you just feel right about. You're just like, "No, I'm right. I am misunderstood. This person doesn't value me. This, what's another example? Like, I'm right that I'm a burden. I'm right that I should leave this relationship because I'm just gonna hurt the people that I love. I'm right that the people that I'm with are like never take the time to truly know me and understand me. Whatever it is that you're really right about. Like, obviously, in this example, it's about being misunderstood, but there's a lot of different things in which you could get stuck and that you're right about instead of considering other perspectives. Because again, this is about holding multiple perspectives as true at the same time. It may be absolutely 110% true that your partner is misunderstanding you. That might be 100% true. But at the same time, what's also true is they might not be trying to misunderstand you, or they might have a counterpoint or a different perspective that is also true as well, but it's just in conflict what you're holding to be true right now. And so when we can hold all of that at the same time, when we can hold that there are multiple perspectives and possibly multiple conflicting perspectives that are all true at the same time, then we can start to come to an even playing field. When we have that awareness of, okay, my perspective is true, their perspective is true. And so, what does that mean? What does that mean for us? And I want you to consider that one thing that it means is that neither of you are right, quote unquote. Because if one of you is right, then it makes the other person wrong, which then creates division, which then creates that aggression or aggravation or that conflict that you're in. And so if both of you can be having experiences that are real and true, but neither one is right or wrong, then we can have a conversation about just our experience. This is how I'm experiencing this. How I'm experiencing this situation is that I feel like you don't understand where I'm coming from. And since I feel like you don't understand where I'm coming from, I feel really hurt and I feel really defensive and I don't really know what to do with that. Great, awesome, like, that's a great place to start, and then maybe they say something like, "Okay, well, from my perspective, I feel like I'm trying to understand you, and I also have these other thoughts and feelings that I also feel are equally important as well." And so holding all of those things, just like, "Okay, got it. So I'm having this experience, you're having a different experience." And what I want you to begin to do, so now you have that level of awareness, you're able to hold all of that at the same time, and then the next step is just listening to each other to understand one another. And that is an extremely difficult and challenging thing to do, even if you're really practiced at it. I feel like I'm fairly practiced at this, and there are times when it is really difficult for me to like just understand someone when I feel hurt by them and they feel hurt by me. And so one way, there's multiple ways that you can do this, and like this is something that I work with my clients, and like I said, there's multiple ways that you can do this, but one way to do that is to um, have each person have time to say everything that they need to say to feel understood by the other person, where you don't react, you don't respond, you don't counterpoint, you don't get dismissive, you don't get defensive, you just purely listen to understand. And so if they say something like, I feel like you don't understand me because I've asked you to have this time with me after work multiple times, and you have said yes, and then you don't do it. You don't give me the time that I have asked for and that you've agreed to give me. And maybe you disagree with that. Maybe you're like, "No, I come home from work every single day and I give you time. Like I literally sit here with you and I share about my day, and like we do this, and like then we cook together and whatever." Like even if like you feel like that's absolutely not true, I want you to just hear them out. Just be like, "Okay, I got it. Like I got the like your experience and how you feel is that, yeah, I'm not following through on what I said that I would do. Okay. What else? How else do you feel misunderstood by me?" Really listen. Listen to every single thing that they have to say until they're done. And if that takes an hour, that takes an hour, and then switch. Go to the other person. And this is the thing, when you switch, it's not to like get back at the other person. It's not to like counter argument, don't like don't keep tallies in your mind as the other person is speaking. Just allow them to be heard, and now it's your turn to be heard. Okay, these are all this is, I feel like you're not hearing me when X, Y, and Z. I want you to understand this. And again, like using that language of, "I want you to understand. This is something about me that I want you to understand. I want you to understand this." Like, and if you have to start every sentence and be completely monotonous and be like, "I want you to understand this. I want you to understand this. I want you to understand this," just to keep yourself in that rhythm of just the things inside of you that need to be understood, rather than attacking the other person, rather than saying something like, every time that you tell me that I'm not doing this right, I feel attacked by you, and I don't think that that's fair. And like that would be like coming to the defensive, right? Where it's just like, no, this is the time to just say what needs to be understood for you. I want you to understand that when you tell me that I'm not doing something that I think I'm doing, it's really hurtful. And I do want to do, like, I want to, I said that I agree to it because that is what I want as well. And I want you to understand that I am trying my best. And I want you to understand that I want to do this in a way where like you feel understood. So again, can you hear like the monotonous of it? But can you also hear that you are using the language of this is something inside of me that I want you to understand. This is something inside of me that I want you to understand. This is something inside of me that I want you to understand, right? Okay, great. I think that I nailed that point home. Sometimes I feel like I try to say things in multiple different ways, just so it, if it doesn't land the first time, maybe it'll land the second or third time. Oh man. Okay, so that's my question. That's my inquiry. Where are you being where the teenager? Where are you being the teenager in your relationship? Where have you stuck yourself? Where have you like decided that you're right about how hurt you are? And so you can't hear any other perspective other than your own. And again, it doesn't take away from your experience to hear other people's perspectives. Your experience can be just as valid when listening to other people's experience as well. And in a relationship, I argue that that's the only way that conflict is going to be resolved, is that when you can hold multiple perspectives at the same time and hold them as valid. And again, this is a challenging thing to do. It is not always the easiest. Sometimes it's super easy. Sometimes it's like, I understand that you really want to get fast food and I really want to go have a gourmet meal, and I understand that you want to save money and that, I don't care right now. Like I've had a long week and I feel like I want to just like use my credit card and go to this gourmet meal. Like sometimes those conversations are a little bit easier, sometimes not. But sometimes when it's just like, I want you to understand that when you do this, you hurt me. Like that's challenging. That's challenging to hear from someone that you really love and you really care about. And so coming from that place, being able to be aware of holding multiple perspectives, letting go of being right, and understand and really work to understand the other person's perspective and to stay on the same team the entire time, because this is the thing, when we decide that we're right and therefore the other person is wrong, even if that's not the language that we're using, just because it's not the language we're using doesn't mean that that's not the way that we're acting, right? Like when I was eavesdropping on the dad and the son didn't say, I'm right and you're wrong. But how he was behaving and how he was acting was, I'm right and you're wrong, right? Like, you don't understand me. You never understand me. Like, you don't know what it's like. You don't know what my day has been like. I'm not going to do the thing that you asked me to. What you asked me to do is unfair because you don't understand the type of day that I have had. And so he's not saying I'm right and you're wrong, but that's how he's behaving. I'm right that my experience trumps whatever it is that your counterpoint is for my experience. And so, again, that creates division, that creates disconnect, and you're not on the same team. It creates a power differential. And so whenever we do that, like we're not headed towards a good place in this conversation or in this partnership. And so if you can catch yourself, be aware of that, come back to being on the same team, letting go of right and wrong, holding all of those perspectives at the same time, then you have a better shot of at least people being heard, because not all conflicts are going to be resolved. Just FYI, not all conflicts are going to be resolved. The Gottman Research Center um, has a statistic that says 60% of conflicts in relationships cannot be resolved. And so sometimes the best way to quote unquote resolve a conflict is just to understand the other person, is just to allow for the space that you're not going to agree, and to allow for the space of whatever that might mean next for your relationship, right? Okay, so, whoo! All right, let's take another big deep breath. Big deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Big deep breath in, out through your mouth. Okay, what are you getting out of this conversation? What are you taking away? What is this bringing up for you? What's the action that you'd like to take from here? Would you like to journal about this? Is there a conversation that needs to be had? Is there an apology that needs to be made? What's the next step for you? And as always, I'm here. If you would like to reach out for my support, I coach people on this, as most of you know who are listening to this. But I coach people and help people through things like this, and also just to create healthier, more connected, peaceful, beautiful relationships than ever thought possible. So, if that's something that you'd like to talk to me about, maybe that's the next step, is to go into the show notes and book a call with me. I would love that. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear how I can support you and the possibility of working together. That would be amazing. All right. I love all of you so much. Sending you so much love, so much gratitude. One step at a time, y'all, okay? Be patient. One step at a time. It's not all going to work out right now, but it will work out one step at a time. Okay. Love, love. Thank you so much for joining me today. What are your takeaways? What is an action that you're going to take that will have this make a difference in your life? However small, take that action. Don't let this just be a good idea. Make that 1% shift in your life today to live more freely and authentically. If you'd like to learn more about my coaching, my classes, or the events that I host, check out my website at www.elizabethannecunningham.com. Until next time, keep loving.